candidate who embody the principles and shared life experiences of many minority communities. Today, we are proud to be joined by members of the African American community, the Arab American community, the Asian American community, the Latino American community, the Jewish American community, the Muslim American community. Together, we all Americans and love this country. And we all stand united behind Hill Harper for United States Senate and Mary Waters and Pamela Pugh for United States House of Representatives Congress. These candidates understand the personal challenges faced by communities that have been disenfranchised and marginalized. They have committed their careers in advocating for equality, justice, and opportunity for all, ensuring that every voice is heard and valued. Today, you will hear from the following speakers. Three candidates at the federal level that are critical to our futures and our survival. They really are. If you look at Michigan, you will see that there has been a significant reduction of people of color, marginalized communities in terms of Congress, and that's got to change. We're at a much worse place now than we were many years ago. And the reality is we have great candidates, and we're here to talk about them today. For the United States Senate, we need Hill Harper to be our representative in Lansing.
Come right here and place the phone where it needs to be.
We need Mary Waters, who's a councilwoman in the city of Detroit, but has legislative experience in the State House, to be our congresswoman from the 13th Congressional District. And Pamela Pugh, Dr. Pamela Pugh, to be our representative from the 8th Congressional District in Lansing and Flint area.
Yeah.
It's critical.
Yeah.
Now, somebody has to be the one to talk ugly, so I will do it. There is and has been for a while I think, systemic lessening of interest in minority communities at the federal level, or at least local politics that affects the federal level. We've never had a black U.S. senator, so let me just say that. And I'm not saying that as a complimentary thing. By now, it seems likely that we should have, because we certainly have the qualified people. And we've always, in the 13th Congressional District, had African American giants who have represented that district for decades. We no longer have that. And one of the reasons that we don't have that is because the local Democratic Party, local meaning the state of Michigan, is not engaging with African American leaders in a way to help develop policy that might stem that. It's fine to independently go to little pockets and talk, but the truth of the matter is, if you're not talking to the leaders who have been duly represented, duly elected to represent folks, then you're not talking to the right people. That's right. One of the groups that is endorsing all three candidates is the Black Mayors of Michigan. At local levels, we have 16 or 17 Black mayors in the state. And for those who look at the word when you say Black, that it has to be a Black community, that's not true. It's true in some cases, it isn't in others. Pleasant Ridge, I don't think it's predominantly Black. No. Lathrop Village, a number of others. We have 16 or 17 people of color who have been elected by communities that were not necessarily of color, but got a chance to understand and know who they were and vote for them because of who they are. At the state level in the Democratic Party, that same kind of connectivity has not occurred to help promote people of color to U.S. congressional seats and senatorial seats. And that's just wrong. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. I don't know what it is, but it's obvious to me that it's a problem. And it's obvious to many of us here because this is a unity group. This is not all about African Americans. This is about people who care for their communities, and their communities have often been marginalized. And we are seeing that so many of the issues we're actually like this on, not like this. And people need to see that creating those kinds of relationships where we are talking to each other, not through each other or over each other, is what's necessary if the Democratic Party is going to be successful going forward in any significant way. To me, it's so obvious that I'm confused as to why we're seeing it. That has to be because people just want to overtly talk about what they believe. They're hiding from the discussion, which is, that's not really where we are. I mean, we have tons of women that are elected, and I'm glad they are, and I voted for most of them. But they're not women of color. They're women. And we have a real problem with voting for men of color. Why? Because it's not being promoted in the Democratic Party the way that it ought to, in my humble feeling.
That's right.
And so I'm hoping that after we get out of the hot sun here in a little while, we're all engaged enough to understand sometimes you're preaching to the choir, and this is the choir here. The choir's got to go out into the congregation and grab people by the arms, start with the arms. If you can't, then go up to the throat. And understand that in the election that we have coming, there is no excuse not to vote. It is not a voting day. It's almost a voting month. You have the opportunity to vote so many times, so many places, so many opportunities that we really have to be about the business of getting these candidates elected. And I'm not going to stand here all day because these candidates and others want to speak. But I am just happy to be able to be here and help facilitate these candidates, getting them out there and understand, I think I'm a kind of a critical person when it comes to analyzing situations. These folks are top-notch candidates. And for those who have this stereotypical thing in their mind that somehow you have to reach a different level if you're going to be an African American, what different level is there? These are all top-notch candidates who are working night and day to try to expose themselves to an electorate that needs to know them better and needs to get in support and behind them.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now let me look at my notes, which I didn't look at all. I want to bring up the first of a group of speakers, and I think they'll all nail it by speaking to the point. But also, I want you to look at the breadth and the diversity of the people who are coming up here and the strength of their organizations. The first person I'm going to introduce is a good friend of mine, Bishop Marcus Ways. And I'm not bringing him up here because he's a good friend of mine. I'm bringing him up here because he is extremely supportive of these candidates and extremely supportive of the fact that we are losing African American representation, and none of us think that makes any sense at all. Bishop Marcus Ways.
Thank you, my county exec, Warren Evans. God bless and blessings to each one of you. The Church of God in Christ is an international organization that represents about 6.5 million persons. We're in over 100 countries, inclusive of the United States of America. Bishop J. Drew Sheard, whom I'm standing representing, not only is the presiding bishop of the church, we also serve, there's a Michigan Canadian Council of Church of God in Christ bishops. We represent, it's an amalgamation of Episcopal leaders, bishops that represent about 400 churches in geographical state of Michigan. Let me be clear that the Michigan Canadian Council of COGIC Bishops has an independent PAC, Political Action Committee, that has been convened and did strategic work to search out the best and the brightest for which our independent Political Action Committee would support and throw its weight around. The Bishop Percy Henderson heads that PAC. I'm the co-chairman with him. After much deliberation, we landed not only County Exec Warren Evans are the mayors, the black mayors, supporting and endorsing these three individuals, but the Church of God in Christ Michigan Canadian Political Action Committee endorses the same three. Brother Hill Harper, that's right, with the same three individuals, among others. Brother Hill Harper, you all, let's just be clear, all right? He graduated undergrad from Brown University, all right, at magna cum laude. He went on to go to Harvard Law School, not just a graduate degree program, has an earned Juris Doctorate degree, all right, and there he graduated with the distinction of cum laude distinction. Those are the credentials that presidents, all right, are made of. Our sister, Dr. Pam Pugh, who is a member of the Church of God in Christ, all right, you have to know she's a scientist. And if it had not been for the work that Dr. Pam Pugh did in Flint, Michigan, during the worst water crisis this country has ever experienced, all right, and you all know about that. It was Dr. Pam Pugh who stepped to the plate and scientifically added her credentials and her expertise to ensure that persons of color and every resident of Flint would be served proper, good, clean water. She, for 10 years, has served as on the State Board of Education. She currently chairs that State Board of Education. She's a member of the Church of God in Christ, certified, qualified, family lady, and she's a community activist. My friend, Mary Waters, who we believe will be elected and needs to be elected as the next Congresswoman representing the House for the 13th District. All right, there's no other community activist and warrior and supporter. If you need somebody to fight for you, you get a Mary Waters, and she will fight for all of us. So in my brief remarks, it is from that perspective, and the Political Action Committee of the Michigan Canadian COGIC Bishops has been very strategic and intentional in putting our arms around these persons and others, because we know and believe they will represent us well. Thank you for these remarks.
Next, we'll have Osama Sablani, the editor of the Arab American News, probably one of the clearest thinking, solid individuals that I've known for many years, who has done an awful lot to bridge community tensions when they would exist. Dear friend and a supporter of these candidates, Osama Sablani.
Thank you, Chief. You are the best that we have seen in so long. Good morning. Are you hot? All right, wait until August 6th and see how hot you are. Well, it is very telling of where we stand, right? So we stand in a place where behind us the statue of a great leader says that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And we see today injustice almost everywhere. And this is not about a single issue. This is not about Gaza and what the Palestinians are witnessing right now of genocide. It is more about the direction of our country and the best politicians that money can buy. It is about the government that we brag about for the people, by the people. It is no longer this way. It's not by the people, but it's for the people by the lobbyists. And we can't afford that anymore. We cannot afford it because we can stand here and scream as much as we can, but I think the loudest voices are in the ballot box. And I say this to our African American, Arab American, Muslim Americans, Latino Americans, Jewish Americans, all Americans. It is not the time to scream. It is the right time to vote. And I do not see myself as an Arab American. When I look at Hill Harper, Mary Waters, Pamela Pugh, I see myself in their eyes. It is not about color, it's about issues, it's about our representation. So please, if you wanted to do us a favor, you vote. And like the chief said, you don't need to vote on August 6th only. Between now and August 6th, we can make the difference. And if we do not make it, we better be silent because we cannot speak after August 6th. So do I have your commitment that between now and August 6th, we will make a difference and vote for Hill Harper, vote for Mary Waters, vote for Pamela Pugh, make our country better, make our community better. It's about education, it's about healthcare, it's about us. It's not about everyone else but us. And it is just us, not only just us, but it's about justice for everybody. Thank you very much.
Next up, we're going to hear from Dr. Abdul Sayed, former candidate for Michigan governor.
All right, good morning. Let's do it better. Good morning. All right, so it is about the middle of the summer, and I want to tell you quickly, just before we talk about 3 issues and 3 people, just want to give a quick introduction for context. It's about the middle of the summer. In my childhood, I used to spend a lot of my summers in a place that was hotter than this because I would simultaneously travel to my family's homeland, which is both in Africa and the Middle East, which is Egypt. And I spent my time with my grandmother, my Teta Suad, wisest person I ever met in my whole life, but she never got to go to school. She raised 6 kids of 8 to whom she gave birth. 2 died before the age of 1. I'd come back here, and in that 10, 15 hours it would take me to come back at the beginning of the school year, the crazy thing is I would travel about 10 years difference in life expectancy, all right? And that makes sense, traveling between here and Egypt, right? But here's something I want you all to understand. You don't gotta go 10 minutes from where we stand today or where I grew up to any neighborhood in the city and travel the same 10-year life expectancy gap. And the thing about it is, I don't know how I would have explained that to my grandmother. And that comes back to 3 issues. Health, fair housing, and the dignity of a hard day's work. And today we're talking about 3 candidates who understand those things. They have been fighting for them throughout their career. They have prepared to fight for them. They understand the policy and are willing to go into the politics to deliver access to those things. They understand that you should not be able to drive 10 minutes anywhere in these United States of America, in the richest, most powerful country in the world, and cross chasms of life expectancy. They understand that every baby born ought to have equal access to a future we all want for all of our kids. They understand that without healthcare, without fair housing, and without celebrating the dignity of a hard day's work, that we aren't ever going to get there. So today, we're talking about 3 people who want to do that work. Mary Waters has been doing that work in this city since before I was born, since I was sending trips to Egypt. All right? Pam Pugh, she did all the work that it took to understand these issues at a scientific level. And Hill Harper, I gotta tell you, I got to know Hill as he was thinking about this race, all right? And as I was talking to him, I asked him, "You got a great career as an actor, why would you do this?" And he told me something profound, and I never really put this together. He said, "Listen, I spend my days trying to empower people to feel things so that they can be entertained. And that's important. But imagine working to empower people to feel things so that we together can do things so that a lot of people out there don't have to feel the rough edges of not being able to get the health care they need, of not knowing whether or not they're going to be able to pay their rent, of knowing that their employer could take their job in an instant." That's the work that they're putting in. So we're here today for 3 reasons. And I want to finish on a final note. It's not lost on me that when I would travel to Egypt, I was across the way, a very thin border, from a place where our government actively drops bombs that we create here on people. And here's the thing about it. A lot of people want to tell you about healthcare, housing, and the dignity of a hard day's work. But those same people say, we're going to get to it. We just don't have the money right now. And you ask yourself, where does that money go? Because this is the richest, most powerful country in the world. If I told my grandmother we didn't have time for healthcare, housing, and a hard day's work, she'd be like, what are you talking about? That's the United States of America. And it's because our leaders tell us that it is more important for us to invest in the means of dropping bombs abroad than providing healthcare, housing, and a dignified workday here at home. And these folks understand that. Because it shouldn't matter if you're talking about Egypt or Detroit. It shouldn't matter if you're talking about Flint. It shouldn't matter if you're talking about Benton Harbor. Everybody deserves those basic things. And if we invest here, because we see the dignity in one another, we can get there. These 3 candidates understand that. These 3 candidates deserve and have earned all of our votes. And you see a diverse group of people here because we are the people who too often bear the brunt of the lack of access to those things. These folks understand that. They've been out in our communities. It is time for us to dignify our votes by lifting them up and giving them to Mary Waters, Pam Pugh, and Hill Harper. Now, I'd like to introduce somebody who's been doing all that work at the ground level, mobilizing the Muslim American community. Hira Khan is the executive director of Engage Michigan. Hira, come on up.
Thank you, Doctor. And assalamu alaikum, everyone. Peace be upon you all. First and foremost, I just want to say how much of a blessing it is to be standing here in community with you all. And I want to thank Mr. Evans for his leadership in bringing all of us together today. So please. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Hira Khan. I am the executive director of Engage Action at Engage PAC here in Michigan. For those of you that don't know, Engage is an organization that works to mobilize the Muslim community about and educate them about their civic duty and rights. Engage also works to build policies and support candidates that share our vision of an inclusive democracy. And on the note of inclusivity, what many of you may not know is the Muslim community is actually the most diverse faith-based community in the country. And contrary to popular narratives, the Muslim population looks remarkably diverse as this audience here, with all ethnicities and all peoples from all walks of life. And I know in such a politically turbulent and polarizing time, people may not feel safe in their ethnic, racial, religious, or even gender identities. And how can we, when our communities are constantly under attack, when we're pitted against each other, and when we're marginalized, when misinformation and disinformation are running rampant to build walls and divide our community and our society? When we are fractured, we don't hold that same level of power that we do when we are together. And we do not have to look back hundreds of years to remember a time when our race, our religion, our immigration status, our reproductive rights were weaponized against us. This is all recent news. And in the Quran, it says, "Indeed, we have created you from a male and female and made you into nations and tribes so that you may know one another." And the meaning of that is there's a beauty in having a multicultural society and a multiracial society where we look beyond ourselves and we build a better future for ourselves together in collaboration, and we build powers for ourselves and our neighbors all together. At Engage PAC, we strongly believe not only that we need to work together as a collective, but that we need to work together and support and uplift leaders who embody and champion our values. We want to see leadership in Michigan that listens to the voices of every member of the community. We want to see leadership that serve the Michigan community and not outside interests or special interest groups. And most importantly, we want leadership that foster unity instead of creating division. That is why Engage PAC is proud to endorse Dr. Pamela Pugh, Mary Waters for the House of Representatives, and Hill Harper for U.S. Senate. And together we can build a strong and representative democracy because we can't do it alone. I will now turn it over to Bishop Troy Muhammad, representing the Minister Troy Muhammad, representing the Nation of Islam. Thank you so much.
I'm a bishop now. I got all these witnesses. But I want to thank Executive Evans for bringing together such a diverse group. It's very important in this time. And I've never been concerned with educational backgrounds of the candidates. But all of these candidates that we're supporting today have shown moral character. They've shown integrity. They've shown a desire for justice. And now it's our time as a people to organize behind these three. Not as an end, but a beginning. Because we have to continue to scream, we have to continue to vote, but we also have to fight if necessary. We want to bring these candidates forward as a beginning to change. So I want us all to support them. I want us all to put our all behind them. Don't just come here today and clap. And then you put in the vote, but you got to bring people with you to the vote. You know, I've known Mary for a long time. She's always in the community. I wasn't across seas, but Hart Plaza is where I would come every Friday and Saturday to hang out as a kid. So I understand some of the bombs. Bombs that's being dropped on people in Palestine. Bombs that's being dropped in the area of education, housing, low income, poverty, war. So it's bombs all over the place. And this team of people, this beautiful people that the executive has brought together today are the people who can change the topic. That's right. So let's do it, y'all.
Now you can hear the candidates. Although I think there were some other potential candidates that we saw there too. The first candidate is Hill Harper, who is our candidate for the United States Senate. You've heard a lot about him. Listen to him for a few. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. This is a beautiful morning. I'm very excited. We are very fired up. Who knew that the concrete in Hart Plaza would heat up like this? So, and I also have to thank Bishop Ways. You know, he gave me his handkerchief. This is an anointed handkerchief. So he said I could keep it too. So this is going with me everywhere in my campaign. First of all, I want to say to the county executive, when we talk about Warren Evans, we talk about a man of courage, a man of character. He's perhaps Michigan's greatest current elected official. And when we talk about very early on in my campaign, it wasn't easy to go against the Democratic Party establishment and endorse my campaign. Warren Evans was the first major Democrat to come out and say, I'm behind Hill Harper, and he's going all the way. So I thank him for that. But these endorsements are related to real work. And quite soon after that, October 7th happened. And quite soon after that, he called Osama Siblani and he asked, would you assemble some leaders from the Arab and Muslim community in your office? And can we sit and talk? And I was able to sit and talk with Asad Turfi and Dr. Abdul El Sayed and many judges and Mayor Bazi and many other folks who came forward and talked about the atrocities that were happening in Gaza and pinpointed the facts. And we talked and discussed, and as I left that meeting, it was clear to me that every elected official needed to emphatically call for a ceasefire, and if they didn't, they were bought and owned by some other entity. When we think about Detroit and where we are right now, it's 148 square miles. All of Gaza is 148 square miles. If we look to our left here, think about everything flat in that direction. Everything behind us flat in that direction. Everything flattened that way. And then start counting people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're either dead or injured. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dead or injured. When we talk about what's happening and we say, are our tax dollars complicit in the death and destruction of innocent lives? And are our representatives actually playing into the fact that they don't have the courage to stand up and say, when there's injustice happening, we have to stop it. We have to elect people that are willing to have that level of courage. I believe myself, Mary Waters, Dr. Pugh, we are all candidates that are leading and talking about these issues. And not just that. Let's be very clear. My campaign today is here and very proud to announce a unity agenda for Michigan. What does a unity agenda for Michigan look like? It looks like the fact that we know so many Michiganders are hurting. 60+% of Michiganders are living paycheck to paycheck. Nearly 30% of Michigan seniors are trying to live off less than $15,000 a year. Every Tuesday, I've had the pleasure to go into multiple senior buildings across Michigan and talk to seniors. They're afraid. We have to protect our most vulnerable communities. We have to fight for them and advocate for them. The first 3 words of the Michigan Constitution and the first 3 words of the United States Constitution are we the people. It doesn't say we the super PAC. It doesn't say we the big donor. It doesn't say we the politician or we the political party. It says we the people, and we need to put people first in all that we do. So, what does that look like? It looks like, number 1, taking care of healthcare. We need Medicare for all that includes mental health care, vision care, dental care. We can get this done, but we need to elect people who are willing to do that. Now let's talk about gun violence. About 4 weeks ago, I was on the east side of Detroit to clean up a building on Cadju, just blocks from where this tragic shooting happened early Sunday morning. Walked into the building, the walls were covered in black mold. We got our bleach, we started trying to clean the black mold, walk into the apartment unit with the young mom, 4 kids. They're sleeping on stuffed animals that are filthy. I say, ma'am, what's going on? She said, we can't afford beds. And I walk into the kitchen, the stove burner's on. I said, ma'am, you can't leave the stove burner on just 24/7. It could destroy. She said, if I turn it off, it won't come back on. I walk over to the sink, turn the faucet, no water comes out. This is how many Michiganders are living. Yet our representation ignores their very existence. Why? Because in the vast majority of zip codes that are at or below the poverty line, voter turnout is less than 5 or 6%. And you know why that is? It's because no one is actually showing up and speaking to these people. No one's allowing them into the conversation. No one's hiring them in their offices. We have to unify this state. We have to unify coalitions, and we have to represent the most vulnerable among us. So a unity coalition looks like a massive amount of African-American voter turnout and representation, a massive amount of Arab and Muslim voter turnout and participation, a massive amount of immigrant, Latino, Asian community, a massive amount of young people and progressives, massive amount of environmentalists who care about the future of our water, clean air. That's a winning coalition in the Democratic Party. That's a winning coalition in Michigan. That's a winning coalition for all of us. And so as I finish, we're standing here in Hart Plaza. And we have to say this. Michigan's greatest senator in history was Phil Hart, the senator that this plaza is named after. And Phil Hart was considered the conscience of the United States Senate. And whoever wins this open U.S. Senate seat here in Michigan, their office will be in the Phil Hart building in Washington, D.C. Why? Because the senior senators want their offices in the Capitol. And the Phil Hart building is off the Capitol. So when my former Harvard Law School classmate Barack Obama was elected to the United States Senate, and he was the junior senator from Illinois, and he said, Hill, come on and visit me in the office, I went to the 7th floor of the Phil Hart building to visit him in his office. Michigan cannot send a U.S. senator to the Phil Hart building. With the first truly open U.S. Senate seat in Michigan in 2.5 decades, that doesn't even represent the values of Phil Hart. I need to say that there's a real choice in this election. It's not just names on the ballot. My opponent in this election did not co-sponsor Medicare for All in the 117th and 118th Congress. My opponent in this election did not co-sponsor the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. My opponent in this race did not co-sponsor the Cannabis and Expungement Act. My opponent in this race just made a disastrous vote last week to not give the State Department funding to certify the Gaza Health Department Ministries injuries on death totals. How do you make that vote? How do you make the vote to sanction the ICC when they truthfully and honestly looked at the record and deemed Netanyahu's actions as crimes against humanity and war crimes? How do you make the vote a week before that to vote for FISA 702, which allows for warrantless surveillance of American citizens, when we know who's targeted from those surveillance? Black, brown, Arab, Muslim, targeted with warrantless surveillance. So when we talk about this election, it's not just performative. It's not just an idea that there are two names at the ballot at the top. It's not just that you're either going to fill in one or the other. It's the fact that this election is truly a matter of life or death. And I say that without hyperbole or exaggeration. When we fight, we win. When we fight, when we fight, when we fight, let's go fight. Let's win this August 6th.
Next, I want to hear from the next Congresswoman of the 13th District, Mary Waters.
Wow, I don't know why they had me to follow on with that. I certainly love you here, Harper, and I appreciate you. And ditto to everything that Hill Harper said. The second thing I want to do is to challenge anybody out here today to run with me on the cut, on the riverfront, anytime. Yes, I've been around for a while, but I'm still doing it. All right. The other thing I want to do is give a shout out to my university, since we talked about Brown and Harvard. Go Blue. I want to mention the fact that I've been a champion for all of the issues that has been mentioned. So my human rights issue, now these are human rights. Water, housing, healthcare, energy, education. Folks, these are human rights issues. And I've been working diligently on these issues from the time that I was in the state legislature. Now that I'm in Detroit City Council, I've really been pushing housing extremely hard because our people really do need the help. They just do. Detroiters cannot afford the rent that's being requested of them. They just can't. They don't have the income. So I have to take that to Washington, D.C. with me because I want her to understand that we need more help from them. Ensuring that we have affordable housing, true affordable housing, income-based housing, all of those things that we need here. The Detroit City Council passed two important resolutions. The first one was a ceasefire resolution. It was not sponsored by me, but I spoke up and I spoke out and I supported it 100%. We have to care about our sisters and brothers, whether we're separated by land or sea. We have to care, folks. Them today, us tomorrow. We just don't know. So please, let's not utter the word again that is not our issue.
That's right.
It is our issue. And we gotta do that. Okay, so let me just talk about a couple things right quick. I'm hot too. Plus, I want to go over and join the mayor, the shootings that occurred. I have a today is bittersweet for me today. I'm here. I'm so excited for the support that I'm receiving from our Wayne County executive, that I'm receiving from Engage and all of the other, and the church.